You clicked for it, and you're about to see it. The moment Donald Trump's worst nightmare came true, live on national television. It wasn't a political attack he could easily swat away. It wasn't a media gaffe that would blow over by morning. No, this was a truth bomb so brutal, so precise, that it didn't just silence a room, it shook the entire political landscape. The kind of moment no amount of spin could fix, because it delivered exactly what he never saw coming. The studio was already a pressure cooker, tense, buzzing with the kind of uneasy electricity that precedes a storm. Seasoned anchors clutched their cards, producers barked hushed commands, and the audience, usually so boisterous, was practically sitting on the edge of their seats. But even with all that anticipation, no one, not one person, could have predicted the eerie, profound quiet that fell over the entire set just moments ago. The main monitor flickered with a replay, capturing the impossible. Donald Trump, leaning back, a rare, bewildered blink in his eyes. Across from him, Representative Jasmine Crockett, impossibly calm, her hands folded, almost serene. Then came the sound, caught on every mic, amplified for millions, a raw, collective gasp from the studio audience, sharp and undeniable. Trump's hand moved, almost mechanically, for his water. He let out a chuckle, but it was hollow, lacking his usual bite. For once, there was no immediate retort, no practiced quip, nothing. The silence in that room stretched, thick and electric, heavy with the weight of an unacknowledged defeat. He was silenced. For a few agonizing seconds, the most vocal man in American politics had nothing to say. And that deafening silence, it was the loudest signal of a power shift anyone could have imagined. But how did we get here? How did a seemingly innocuous town hall in Dallas become the setting for this unprecedented showdown? To understand the earthquake, we must first revisit the spark. This is where it all began, a national town hall in Dallas, Texas. An event that was supposed to be just another stop on the political circuit, but instead became the flashpoint for a truth bomb that shattered expectations. You're about to witness the precise moment Donald Trump delivered a jab he thought would land, and the utterly unexpected way Jasmine Crockett returned fire, a moment that redefined courage in the face of power. It was just past 8 o'clock in Dallas. The city lights twinkled through the studio windows, an indifferent backdrop to the high-stakes drama unfolding live across multiple networks. This wasn't a carefully managed rally or a pre-taped interview. This was a raw, round-table discussion. No teleprompters, no safety nets, just direct confrontation. On one side, President Donald Trump, flanked by conservative analysts, all practiced bluster and well-worn confidence. Across from him, a small group of Democrats, among them Representative Jasmine Crockett, watchful, assessing, waiting. Jasmine was quiet at first, letting others trade statistics, argue over budgets, and exchange familiar jabs. She wasn't there to make noise for the sake of it. She was there to speak when it mattered. And about 35 minutes in, during a heated exchange on leadership and accountability, Trump, ever the provocateur, looked directly at her. His eyes, usually scanning the room, locked onto hers with a dismissive smirk. Maybe if some of these young politicians stopped trying to go viral and started learning their place, he sneered, this country wouldn't be in such a mess. He didn't have to say her name. The implication hung heavy in the air. A few uncomfortable laughs rippled from the audience, almost instinctively. One of the moderators, a smooth-talking veteran, sensed the impending collision and tried to pivot. "Mr. President, let's bring it back to—" But Jasmine held up her hand, a subtle gesture that commanded immediate attention. Her voice cut through the moderator's calm, firm, unwavering. She didn't raise her tone, and perhaps, in its quiet power, that's what made it sting more. "Mr. Trump," she stated, her gaze steady, "I know you're used to people clapping for nonsense, but respect isn't handed out based on age or title. It's earned, and given your record, you might want to sit this one out." The studio fell into absolute, profound silence. It lasted maybe 4 seconds, but it felt like an eternity. Then the collective gasp, and Trump for once was utterly, uncharacteristically still. That silence in the studio, it wasn't empty. It was the calm before a digital hurricane. You saw the gasp, the stunned flicker in Trump's eyes, but how did that single moment, that raw, unscripted truth bomb, become an immediate, undeniable explosion that rippled across every screen and into every conversation, proving beyond doubt that Trump's worst nightmare had just gone viral? In the studio, the seasoned crew, usually so professional, seemed to hold their collective breath. The director, usually barking orders, let out a low, almost reverent whistle, already knowing they had gold. Anchors' eyes were wide, their lips pressed tight as they watched the live feed. Other panelists shifted awkwardly, darting their eyes between Crockett and Trump, trying to process what had just happened. The impossible Trump momentarily silenced on live television. Within seconds, the digital world detonated on X, TikTok, Instagram. Clips of the moment, edited with dramatic music, exploded. Memes were born faster than you could blink. Jasmine's calm face contrasted with Trump's momentarily stunned expression. Low IQ didn't just trend, it dominated. Jasmine Crockett soared to the top of trending topics across 6 different platforms. Cable news networks immediately cut away from scheduled programming, replaying the clip, their commentators scrambling to define the indefinable. Emergency podcast episodes dropped within the hour. Late-night hosts were already rewriting their opening monologues. This wasn't just news, it was a phenomenon. Yet amidst this unprecedented media frenzy, Jasmine Crockett herself remained conspicuously silent. Her phone, usually a tool of work, became a vibrating, relentless entity, besieged by calls and texts. Some were wildly supportive, others chillingly disturbing. Screenshots of online rage, veiled threats, coded language, all poured in. But instead of engaging, she pulled away, seeking refuge at her godmother's quiet home, watching the storm build from afar. The very speed and ferocity of the response from every corner of the internet and media made the moment inescapable. But in Washington, and deep within the engine of the Trump campaign, silence was never an option. For a man who thrived on dominating the narrative, this direct hit demanded an immediate, overwhelming counter-offensive. You saw the immediate impact, the viral explosion. But what happens when the most powerful man in American politics is publicly disarmed? What fury unleashes behind the scenes, and what lengths will his team go to, not just to reclaim the narrative, but to punish the one who dared to challenge it? This is where Trump's worst nightmare really begins to bite, as his counter-offensive launches with a brutal, calculating precision he believed would crush any dissent. In the gilded war rooms of his campaign headquarters, Donald Trump was livid. He paced, furious, his face, usually a mask of practiced confidence, now contorted with a rare, impotent rage. This wasn't just another debate, this was an affront. He could not, would not, tolerate being outmaneuvered, especially by someone he had dismissed as a mere young politician. The directive was immediate, unyielding. Get a statement out, now. Call her what she is, disrespectful, unprofessional. This is a disgrace. Nobody talks to me like that. A rapid response team, well-oiled and ruthless, immediately sprang into action. A statement was crafted and released, condemning Jasmine's response as rude, unprofessional, and yet another example of why Democrats are out of touch with real America. The aim was clear, to reignite Trump's base, to turn the tide of public opinion back in his favor. Right-wing influencers, loyal to the core, flooded their platforms with decontextualized, edited versions of the town hall moment, adding dramatic sound effects, desperately trying to flip the narrative. They branded her hostile, entitled, a disrespectful brat. Hashtags like unprofessional Crockett and "It's where is her place" were engineered to trend. But beneath the orchestrated social media storm, a darker, more sinister current emerged. Hundreds of threatening direct messages, thinly veiled and sometimes explicitly vile, flooded Jasmine's inboxes. Messages like, "You're not as untouchable as you think," or cryptic warnings that spoke of what happened to the ones who spoke too soon. Capitol Police were immediately looped in, escalating their security measures around her home and office. A man, out of state, was found parked suspiciously outside her district office, merely watching. And then came the envelope, hand-delivered, with a torn page of Time magazine featuring Jasmine's face, circled in red, and a single, chilling, sticky note. "You're making it worse." This wasn't just political maneuvering, this was calculated intimidation. The fear was palpable, a chilling reminder that words, once unleashed, could inspire dangerous actions. But while the threats escalated and the counter-offensive roared, Jasmine Crockett remained, strangely, remarkably calm. Her history, her bedrock, had prepared her for this very moment. The online world raged, the media spun, and the threats against her mounted, becoming terrifyingly real. Donald Trump's campaign launched a full-scale assault designed to discredit and silence her. You might expect anyone to crumble under such relentless pressure, to retreat, to apologize. But Jasmine Crockett stood firm. So how did she manage to remain so unshakable, even as the storm raged around her? The truth lies in the bedrock of who she is, in a history that had prepared her for this exact moment. Despite the explicit threats, the chilling surveillance, and the escalating noise, Jasmine refused to hide. She didn't retreat into silence, nor did she issue a carefully worded apology. Instead, she chose to face the whirlwind, her calm resolve a stark contrast to the chaos swirling around her. This wasn't bravado, it was consistency. She had grown up in Shreveport, Louisiana, born into a family that understood the true meaning of resilience. Her mother worked grueling nursing shifts. Her father patched up cars in a rented garage, instilling in her the value of hard work and integrity. Discipline in their home wasn't about punishment, but about principles. Jasmine herself often recounted the only time she ever felt truly grounded was for not speaking up when she knew someone else was lying. That lesson, forged in her youth, stuck with her. By 15, she knew her path, not money, not prestige, but law. "I want to be the person in the room," she'd once told her high school civics class, who says, "Hold on, that's not right." After graduating from Rhodes College, she pushed through law school at the University of Houston, choosing to spend her summers in criminal defense, working pro bono for clients no one else would touch. She developed a reputation for not flinching when facing off with judges twice her age, for taking complex truths, stripping them to their bones, and presenting them with unassailable clarity. When she entered politics, first in Austin, then in Washington, she didn't change. She called out party leaders when they played it safe, challenged controversial bills, and refused to go quiet during heated committee hearings. She never smiled just to get along, and that made some uneasy, but others, crucially, stood up and took notice. So when she found herself on that national town hall stage, facing Trump, it wasn't a performance. It was an instinct, honed over decades, to protect dignity. And even as the threats mounted, the silent support that had always been her bedrock began to make itself known. Her godmother, Althea, a woman of quiet strength, simply looked her in the eye and whispered, "You said what a whole generation of us wanted to say." Letters began to arrive, not from the roaring online crowds, but from unexpected corners. A retired military officer, a 12-year-old boy. Each message, quiet and profound, was a testament to the fact that her truth had resonated far beyond the fleeting moment. Perhaps most moving was an op-ed by a young political science student, Latanya Ellis, whose words echoed Jasmine's own internal fight. "She cracked open the door," Latanya wrote, "for all of us, tired of waiting for someone else to say it first." Reading Latanya's piece, Jasmine felt a profound jolt of recognition, a renewed understanding of why she stood exactly where she did. Her strength wasn't just about courage, it was about an unbreakable conviction that had been forged long before the cameras started rolling, making her an unshakable force even in the face of Trump's most brutal counter-offensive. But while the external storm raged, a more insidious challenge was brewing within the very halls of power. Washington, with its unspoken rules and entrenched hierarchies, was about to apply its own unique squeeze. You've witnessed the explosive public fallout and the retaliatory fury from outside. But what happens when you challenge the unwritten rules, within the seemingly polite yet ruthlessly ordered world of Washington, D.C. What happens when you refuse to play by a script written by others? Jasmine Crockett was about to find out as the Capitol itself began to apply its subtle, and sometimes not so subtle, squeeze. The very air in the Capitol felt different the next day. No dramatic confrontations, no public condemnations. It was far more insidious. The usual easy greetings from colleagues shortened. Some smiles no longer reached the eyes. The senior representative who once pulled her aside for strategic advice now barely acknowledged her in the elevator. Her name, once whispered in the halls, was now deliberately omitted from caucus discussions, even as her face dominated cable news. Her chief of staff, Leonard Ramos, aptly called it respectful avoidance. Jasmine, however, was used to being underestimated. She continued her daily routine, attending committee hearings, asking sharp questions, showing up, doing the work. But she could feel the temperature drop, the subtle chill from those who once dismissed her, but now simply didn't know what to do with her. Their unease, in itself, made her dangerous. In a closed-door budget discussion in room 216 of the Cannon House office building, Representative Neil Camden from Nebraska, a man whose career was built on bland compromise, made his move. With a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes, he delivered a veiled attack. "Maybe we could make more progress," he suggested, "if people weren't more focused on going viral than writing policy." A few nervous chuckles rippled through the room. Jasmine simply blinked. "Is that directed at me?" she asked. Camden shrugged, feigning nonchalance. Jasmine let the silence hang just long enough. Then, her voice flat, steady, she surgically exposed his hypocrisy. "You want to talk about substance? Let's start with your farm subsidy line item from last session. Want to explain how that made it into a veterans bill?" The room went silent. No one laughed. No one scribbled notes. She didn't press it. She didn't have to. The truth hung, exposed. Later, a younger colleague, Miguel Rosado, approached her, admiration in his eyes. "That was surgical," he whispered. "I've been wanting to call Camden out for months." "Why didn't you?" she asked. Miguel hesitated. "He's been here 23 years. And I'm still on the subcommittee that votes on my water project." She understood. It wasn't just about speaking up, it was about the cost. But the real squeeze came in room 240 in a closed-door meeting with 6 senior Democrats, some of whom had been in Congress for decades. They spoke of managing the temperature, of the party needing unity, not heat. Representative Blaine Kirkwood began, his voice a practiced calm. "Jasmine, we're glad you came. You're sharp, passionate, but with attention comes responsibility. The moment's bigger than you." Jasmine, cutting through the politeness, asked directly, "Are you asking me to walk it back?" Representative Lillian Stokes, softer but no less firm, chimed in, "We're asking you to manage the temperature." "You mean silence," Jasmine countered. The oldest in the room, Representative Paul Greer, sighed. "You can keep making noise, Congresswoman, but just remember, you only get so many moments before they stop giving you the mic." Jasmine stood. Her voice was steady, resonant. "I wasn't given anything," she declared. "I took the mic because no one else was saying it, and I'll speak when it matters, whether the party likes the volume or not." She left before they could respond, leaving behind a room filled with stunned, defeated silence. Later, her phone buzzed with an unexpected message from Senator Elijah Brandt, a long-serving centrist. "You've got more eyes on you than you think. Don't let them corner you." It was a warning, not a compliment, and it felt very real. That night, she wrote a new line in her personal manifesto. "My voice didn't break, so why should I?" Despite the subtle shunning, the veiled attacks, and the direct pressure from the party's most senior figures, Jasmine Crockett refused to bend. She chose authenticity over compliance, proving that some voices once found cannot be silenced. But the true test of her resolve and the final delivery of Trump's worst nightmare would come when she was once again face to face with the man himself. You've witnessed the initial truth bomb, the immediate viral explosion, and the furious counter-offensive that followed. You've seen Jasmine Crockett stand firm against both public rage and political pressure. But the ultimate test of Trump's nightmare and the final delivery of what he never saw coming lay in a pre-recorded studio in San Diego. It was a rematch, not in a chaotic town hall, but under controlled lights, where both protagonists would be forced to confront the fallout and each other directly. 7 days after the moment that shook national television, Jasmine Crockett sat in a green room, the hum of the studio a muted background. This wasn't a live brawl, it was a carefully orchestrated segment for a widely syndicated Sunday political show. The set was deliberately neutral, designed to encourage dialogue, not fireworks. Donald Trump had agreed to the interview under strict conditions: no audience, no crowd reactions, no gotcha questions. Jasmine, for her part, simply requested that no part of her answers be edited. As she waited, she calmly adjusted the cuff of her blazer. Her makeup artist had offered a brighter lip color, something to soften her image. She declined, choosing instead a quiet, unyielding presence. A producer's quiet knock. "They're ready." Jasmine walked onto the set with a measured, deliberate pace. Trump was already seated, hands folded on the table. Their eyes met across the polished surface. No smile, no overt tension either, just a quiet acknowledgement of the weight of the moment. The moderator, Carla Benning, a veteran journalist, unshakable and razor-sharp, opened the segment as a conversation about tone, leadership, and the thin line between conviction and conflict. She began by replaying the now infamous clip: Trump's jab, Crockett's comeback, the stunned silence. When the lights came back up, Carla turned to Jasmine. "Congresswoman Crockett, 1 week later, do you regret anything about that moment?" Jasmine's voice was clear, unwavering. "I regret," she stated, "that the bar for what counts as stunning is still a woman refusing to be minimized." Trump leaned forward, a practiced scoff. "That's the problem," he countered. "Everything's personal with you people. I made a comment about professionalism. That's fair game." She took it as an attack. Jasmine didn't blink. "You didn't question my professionalism," she corrected. "You questioned my place." Trump chuckled, a low rumble. "Well, when you've been around politics for as long as I have, you earn the right to say certain things. That's experience." Jasmine nodded slightly, an almost imperceptible gesture. "And when you've lived in systems built to ignore you," she responded, "you learn not to wait for permission." Carla smoothly shifted the topic to policy: crime rates, education, housing. Jasmine focused on data, Trump on anecdotes, but the undercurrent remained. Later, Carla asked about the threats Jasmine had received. Trump raised his eyebrows, feigning surprise. "I had nothing to do with that." "I didn't say you did," Jasmine replied, her voice firm. "But when you speak recklessly, people act recklessly. Words have weight." Trump paused, then said, almost softly, "That goes both ways." It wasn't an admission of fault, but it wasn't a denial either. The interview concluded not with fireworks, but with a profound silence. No shouting matches, no viral outbursts, just a measured exchange that paradoxically landed with even greater force. It was a victory not of volume, but of truth, delivered calmly and precisely. Leonard Ramos, waiting outside, sighed with relief. "You good?" he asked. Jasmine exhaled slowly. "Yeah," she said. "I said what needed to be said." This pre-recorded segment didn't break ratings records, nor did it spark another social media firestorm. But its impact would prove to be far deeper, its ripples extending far beyond the immediate political arena, touching lives and conversations in ways no one could have predicted. The shouting had faded. The viral clip, though forever etched in digital history, was no longer the sole focus. Yet the truth bomb Jasmine Crockett unleashed didn't just vanish. It continued to resonate, a low, powerful hum beneath the surface of American discourse. This wasn't about fleeting fame, it was about the profound, undeniable impact of one person's courage, fulfilling the promise that Trump's worst nightmare would be a lasting legacy, a shifting of the very ground he stood upon. That Sunday episode, quiet by cable news standards, reached exactly the people who needed to hear it. Not just political junkies, but voters tired of the shouting, young leaders unsure if their voices mattered, and elders who had spent decades waiting for someone to speak truth to power in such an unvarnished way. A week after the sit-down aired, a subtle yet powerful shift began. In classrooms across the country, students analyzed the clip in civics lessons, professors dissecting the intersection of identity, power, and language. Debate teams broke it down frame by frame, her posture, her pacing, the way she didn't raise her voice, yet landed every word like a hammer. In an Omaha coffee shop, two women, one praising Crockett for her respect, the other correcting, he's the one who said she needed to learn her place. She told him she already knew it. Meanwhile, Jasmine's office saw a different kind of flood, not hate mail, but handwritten letters from unexpected corners, a retired military officer from San Bernardino, a 12-year-old boy from Topeka. Each offered a quiet, profound validation, proof that her truth had resonated far beyond the fleeting moment. And inside Congress, something even more profound began to stir. Younger representatives, emboldened by Jasmine's example, began speaking with a new edge. Staffers took cues from her measured defiance. The old guard tried to dismiss it, but the energy was undeniable. Voters who had felt unseen, unheard, were re-engaging, drawn back to politics because, for a brief, powerful moment, someone had spoken with the raw authenticity they craved. She had cracked a wall, not with volume, but with precision, proving that silence in the face of lies had a new, powerful antidote. The profound realization, her truth bomb, didn't just go viral, it ignited a deeper, more meaningful shift than any short-lived celebrity. Jasmine Crockett's story, however, isn't about a single moment of triumph. It's about what comes after the applause fades, about the relentless dedication to a principle that transcends headlines, leading to a profound, final payoff that truly delivers Trump's worst nightmare. You've followed the tremor, watched the shockwave, you've seen the fury, the pressure, and the defiance. But what truly becomes of a moment like this? What is the lasting legacy of that truth bomb, the profound, undeniable delivery of Donald Trump's worst nightmare? It wasn't just about a viral clip or a single skirmish. It was about something far more fundamental, something he could never have controlled. The cameras had largely moved on, the urgent headlines had faded, but for Jasmine Crockett the work continued, quietly, relentlessly, proving that her commitment wasn't to the fleeting spotlight, but to the deep, consistent change she had always championed. Her viral moment wasn't a peak, it was simply a pivotal reference point in a much longer, far more significant journey. Show her continued work in the district, her mentoring, her speech at Langston, and the personal manifesto, connecting it back to the initial act, emphasized the long game. She didn't chase more interviews or book deals. Instead, she showed up. In community centers in Duncanville, Texas, at town halls with folding chairs and squeaking microphones. No press, just people. An older woman once asked her, "Were you scared?" Jasmine paused, then, with a quiet strength, simply replied, "I was aware." She wasn't scared of him, she was aware of the system designed to make her feel small. But that awareness, she explained, didn't mean silence. It meant she had to speak carefully, deliberately. "I don't want to be remembered for a comeback," she told them, her voice resonating through the humble hall. "I want to be remembered for consistency. That moment on live TV wasn't me performing, it was me protecting something." "Protecting what?" a man called out from the back. "Dignity," she stated simply, and the room went still, understanding. She accepted an invitation to speak at Langston University, telling students, "I just needed a moment where I remembered why I got elected." She continued to mentor young political science students, telling one, "The rooms don't belong to them, they belong to the people. And the people don't need perfect, they need present." At night, alone in her apartment, she would pull out that piece of paper where she'd long ago written, "My voice didn't break, so why should I?" Beneath it, she added a new line, "Let them talk, I'll keep working." She understood this was a long game, a battle of attrition against a mentality that sought to diminish and control. Articulate how her actions represent Trump's worst nightmare, not just a single defeat, but a fundamental shift in political discourse and the empowerment of authentic voices that he cannot control or silence. The low IQ comment, intended to diminish, instead ignited an unstoppable force. Final call to action. And this, truly, was Donald Trump's worst nightmare made manifest. Not the single televised moment where he was silenced. No, his true nightmare was the unstoppable ripple effect, the profound shift that began because one woman refused to learn her place. He called her low IQ, hoping to dismiss her, to put her back in a box. But that very dismissal, that underestimation, became the spark. Her truth bomb didn't just hit him, it ignited a movement of voices, young, old, unheard, who recognized themselves in her defiance. She proved that power doesn't always roar. Sometimes it speaks with quiet, unyielding clarity, and that authenticity, once unleashed, cannot be bought, coerced, or silenced. She showed that the true measure of a leader isn't in their ability to command attention, but in their unwavering commitment to truth, even when it's inconvenient, even when it's dangerous. Trump's nightmare wasn't just a single defeat, it was the realization that a new generation, emboldened by Jasmine Crockett, had stopped waiting for permission to be real. So here's the ultimate question, posed directly to you, the viewer. What will you say when the mic comes your way? Will you whisper to get by, lost in the noise? Or will you speak your truth clearly, courageously, ready to be remembered?